All right. It's 7:40 on the dot, and I think we can start the session. So welcome everyone to our data storing webinar. I hope we are pumped for the session. If you are, please write in the chat if you're ready for the session, if you're ready to learn about the art of data storytelling. You can write a 1 if you're pumped for the session. Thank you, Paris, John, Dennis, Megan, Collins. I see most of you are pumped for the session. So thank you. My name is Joanne. I'm the community manager at Zindua School. And we have an exciting lineup of insights and strategies to share with you on how to craft compelling narratives using data. So before we dive in, I'd like to kick things off with a question for all of you. You can write your response in the chat. So is there one challenge you face when trying to communicate data effectively? Whether you've ever dealt with data or you've built a dashboard before, have you ever experienced a challenge? And feel free to share your thoughts in the chat, and we'll address some of this throughout the session. So without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Nduti. He is one of our technical mentors here at Zindua School, and he will be guiding us throughout the session. So karibu Nduti, you may start it off.
Thanks a lot, John. How are we doing, guys? Just you can wave to me, maybe give me a laughter. Are you guys well tonight? Hope you're well. Oh, for starters, I hope you can also hear me. You might have jumped on this bandwagon.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, fantastic, fantastic, great. So yes, as Joan introduced, I'm Buta, part of the data science team right here. So yeah, I have the pleasure of working us through data storytelling, or at least a part of it. So, which it's quite a broad topic, as you will see. But we'll try and just address some of those issues that might just improve our data storytelling by quite a distance. So yeah, pleasure to have you guys. You allow me to share my screen. I prepared a few slides for us. Great. So I'll rely on you, John, since once I start sharing, I won't be able to see what's on the track. You'll be my accomplice for today. So,
So
okay, great. You guys can see my screen? The slide, guys?
yeah, we can.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, great. So, we'll begin our session with this maybe one just a quote to maybe just get the blood flowing. Yeah, and it goes something like, most powerful person in the world is a storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, the values, and the agenda of an entire generation that is to come. Those are quite powerful words. I don't know about you guys, but when I came across this quote, uh, I just felt like I needed to put it here because this removes the scope of data storytelling and sort of opens up a whole other scope for this, right? We might be coming into this workshop primarily to improve our visualizations. Maybe we want to know how to improve our graphs, so on and so forth. But data storytelling is not just a data centric issue, right? It has the power to do so much. As a matter of fact, we've been selling all our lives. We've been selling ourselves all our lives in interviews. We've been selling ourselves, even sometimes to friends, not knowingly. But we'll get to just get the hang of what this whole thing is. But a word that stands out to me in this quote is agenda. Agenda, and we'll get to see why this is very important in this context. And yeah, so it's unfortunately this is not a quote by me; it's a quote by Steve Jobs. So yeah, just food for thought. But what is data storytelling? Let's just dive straight into it, right? And the definition goes into like this. Well, you can find many variations of this, but they will all revolve around the same thing, and that is of just taking this data that we have and formulating a narrative, right, that resonates with our audience or that puts our message across. And this visualization, if I'm to just draw your attention to this, sort of paints a very interesting picture of what really data storytelling is. And we are seeing that it's sort of an intersection of visuals and narrative in our data. And what we're trying to aim for while doing data storytelling is this sweet spot over here, right? This sweet spot whereby our data and our visuals all work hand in hand to help us deliver a narrative, right? So we have picked something that we want to, draw attention to. Maybe it's a data set that deals with maybe carbon emissions, and we want to enlighten people, or we want to just make it clear certain facts about CO2 emissions. And maybe we're dealing with data that is with regards to various food types. Data storytelling is how we are able to get that data, create visuals from that data, all within the narrative that we're trying to put across, all with the aim of making our message as clear as, and as, think of it as very absorbable at first glance. So data is one of those pillars of data storytelling. So are the visuals. But more important is the narrative. And nothing is more important than the other. Just think of them as having to complement each other, right? So this is just data storytelling. And one of the words that stands out here is acts. And I believe also when John was introducing us to this session, she mentioned something else. If I'm to quote her, she said we are going to look into the art of data storytelling, and that also opens another. I don't call it a can of worms because it's just goods, right? Not worms, right? So it just sort of introduces a new angle to data storytelling, one in which we are sort of allowing room for creativity, room for expressing yourself, right? What do I mean by this? I mean by on matters data storytelling, we do not have a one size fits all. It is never something like a mathematical formula that will help us calculate derivatives, right? Or a procedure to diagnose something, right? It's never that. It has building blocks, but it also introduces a whole aspect of creativity and difference in how me and you approach or present something. Think of it as such. We can have the same experience, and we've all even maybe seen this in our social skills, definitely, where we were in the same situation with some people. But then, if something happened and we had to give a story on that later, there's that person that we want to listen to the most because they tend to give that story in a very unique way. And that's where the art part of data storytelling comes in, right? But well, we can't really coach that. Probably with practice, you can get better at your delivery. But what we can at least have a solid control over is our visualizations and how they contribute to the complete data storytelling. All right. So let's move on. The whole idea, as this will be, it's going to come up every other time as we continue to talk about data storytelling. The whole idea is just to make our insights or our message more memorable, more engaging, and more persuasive. All right. So the whole point of this is just whatever that we have found, we've gotten some data somewhere, we've looked into this data, we found something interesting. But that is not enough. Our delivery needs to be very important. It needs to allow us to have this message very memorable in our audience, very engaging with our audience, and very persuasive to our audience. And persuasive in the sense that it will be sort of a call to action or ignite uh, something. So the purpose is not always a call to action. Sometimes we just want to enlighten or to just bring a point to the light. But the whole idea revolves around these three things, right? And you'll notice all of them it's sort of psychological. All these things are psychological, meaning data storytelling also has that psychological aspect to it, right? It's not just about having the best visuals and crafting them. There's also that psychological aspect to it. Something to do with even the time of delivery. There's some news we'd want to share X times and not at Y times. Just think of how sometimes you think of a joke in a funeral. You don't want to say it out loud, right? You're trading on thin ice. You wouldn't want to thread someone. So that is all part of data storytelling. Understanding um, also the time in which you want to deliver your message and thinking to yourself, it is the best time, right? Also at work, maybe you've been performing at work, right? It's the end of the quarter and you feel you maybe this is a good time to go and score a raise. But maybe that month you guys had some some a rough time or something, and you're thinking to yourself, is this the best time to maybe go and raise up this issue? Anyway, I don't want to dive into that too much. Also, can be controversial, but just I'm trying to paint a picture of how there are so many factors that are to play on matters data storytelling. Great, but as I mentioned, there are these core building blocks that will vastly improve our data storytelling skills. And there are very many variations of this. You would go online, look at this, look at other webinars, maybe you read books on data storytelling, and you meet so many variations of it. But things that will always they will always revolve around this four building blocks. One being the data, and what we mean by the data is yes, before you even come to tell this story or before you come and share your insights with us, are they even correct? Are you using accurate data? Are you using high quality data? Also, if you are coming to address global warming, I don't expect to see financial data there. Maybe you might find a way of tying it to global warming, but is this data relevant? That's what I'm trying to say, right? We will not be talking about health and then, I'm seeing now we are seeing some things about something that doesn't make sense, right? So the data has to be accurate, it has to be relevant, or it has to contain those insights that you're trying to focus. Who is the narrative or the storyline or the structure? And this is what connects all these points together, right? This think of this as the broadest context, right? So within this narrative we get data that matches our narrative, we get a storyline that we're trying to put across, and we build visualizations that support this narrative of ours. And then now we can introduce another aspect of the delivery part, and this is all encompassing. So think of not only how you talk, not only if at all there is this. Sometimes you're even working on something that you just share as a PowerPoint to management or to whoever. So the delivery can have so much. We're talking about the visualizations. How are we presenting our data? What visualizations how have we chose so that they can put our message out there and make it as obvious as possible, which is the goal, right? And lastly is the audience. Who are we addressing this to, right? Am I talking to management? Am I talking to team leads? Now, if I'm just to even ask you guys a question, if maybe you have a presentation on a Monday morning that's 9:30 a.m. and you're probably making presentation to the management, to the members of the management team, right? Uh, I don't think you're getting an hour to go and address these issues. So with that in mind, even as you're crafting your narrative, you know that I have to squeeze all my insights into 1 2 slides, which I can go through very fast. And I am supposed to, I will try as much as possible to make these slides have as much information as I want them to receive, right? Also, there's a balance to that. I don't want to clutter the chat as we'll see in a few slides, but I know I have very short time and I want to deliver the most within this short time, as opposed to maybe having a session, an afternoon session with your team. Maybe we have a session from 2 to 5. And when I'm building my stories during this particular time, even if the narrative is the same as what I was talking about in the management, I have wiggle room to have maybe more detail, right? Right? I can drill down. I can maybe have a graph in a graph that tells me more about this graph, another graph that tells me more about this graph. Because in that context, in that audience of maybe team leads and colleagues who we are maybe of the same level, we're just trying to tick all the boxes and make sure that yes, we have an overall goal, but we have wiggle room to just be a bit more detailed and just explain our findings in a better way, right? So the audience is key as well. But I struggle finding the most important cog in this machine of ours But we don't need to have the most important. These are very important building blocks. So that's why they're core building blocks, right? So on that note, even before we move to statistics versus stories, by the way, data storytelling is even more important when you think about the applications, right? As I say, this is not just a data thing. We've been selling on interviews, we are selling ourselves. The investors going to look for funding for their startups, for their companies, they are selling themselves. And I'm sure this wouldn't be news to you guys, but stories always sell. No one wants to go and sell a bunch of statistics. That is always, it's not consumed in the best way. That's why we have news, guys. Some of these things we know. We know that probably um, particular financial year, as Kenya, we lost a couple of billions. We know that. But what the media houses will do is take that information and craft a story from it. And that way, when they're fitting it in the bulletin, maybe from 7 to 7:15 or 7:20, they're delivering it in form of a story which is going to capture our attention as fast as possible. So statistics are not really stories. We need to distinguish this, and it's actually quite obvious, right? Two more quotes that I found very interesting around these concepts. One, facts tell and stories sell. So statistics are part of the data storytelling umbrella. Think of this data storytelling as this all-encompassing umbrella that has so many cogs within. Statistics are just a part of that, but they are not that. So facts, we'll use facts to tell stories because facts will always tell and the stories will always sell. And even more interesting is this other one I found. Data is like garbage, guys. You'd better know what you're going to do with it before you collect. Because we live in a world where data is everywhere. We have humongous amounts of data. And sometimes people do not even want that data. What they want is stories from that data. People, we are visually bombarded, not even visually, but front, right, and center. We are just hit with, data everywhere. You go on social media, you have so many. We had, if you even to think about something like TikTok or YouTube Shorts, there was so much content to be shared that they decided let's find an optimized way to share as much content as possible. Just think of it. That is the era in which we live in, whereby there is so much information going around, and information is fatigue. So this is where stories come in, whereby you want to pass a message across at these eras. You need to be very good at telling stories and drafting stories around that data. That way, you do not fall victim to just too much information out there. As a matter of fact, stories are 22 times more memorable than. And we'll see. Probably this is probably its fault. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out enough, right? So let's see. If you read this statement, right, it's a bit long, but just the highlights just tell what I want to say. But the odds of being in an accident, guys, during a flight is 1 in 1.2 million. Meaning, if we are to have 1.2 million flights, one of those flights will result in an accident. And the chance of that being fatal is a further 1 in 11 million. Comparatively, your chances of dying in a car crash are 2,000 times higher than bringing that average to about 1 in every 5,000 car trips result in an accident. Now, let me just open the forum and maybe some of you guys can tell me. After reading this or after hearing this, what's going through your minds, guys? What are you feeling? What's the sentiment, right? What are these statements invoking? What's going through your mind, right? You know, just feel free to unmute and just share your insight. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just it's a discussion. At this point, we're just discussing. We haven't gotten to where we give tips, right? What comes to mind when we read this?
Um, you have higher chances of dying in a car crash than accident.
So if I am to present you with an option right now and tell you, would you rather board a plane or a car? What are you boarding? If at all resources are not an issue. Forget the expenses.
An airplane.
Definitely an airplane. To a flight. And yes, that's true. But these are statistics. Let me give you guys a short story. So I don't know how many of you guys, probably we've all heard about 9/11, but probably the details around 9/11 might be a bit nuanced. And you can just go ahead and just read this as we talk about this. But the story is that in 9/11, we had some planned attacks on specifically on airplanes. And what happened is four planes crashed into various parts of the United States, right? So we had two planes go and crash into the Twin Towers. We had another one crash into the Pentagon, if I'm not wrong, and the other one somewhere else. Doesn't matter. But we had four planes in the space in a very short space, around an hour. All this had happened, if I'm not wrong. Now, this was in 2001, September. Something very interesting happened. After that, miles that people, a statistic came out that people just stopped flying. And miles that people were driving, or the number of miles that people were eating up while driving on the roads, shot up quite significantly during that period. And it was despite the fact that there was a recession, meaning flow of income was an issue. But this did not even deter people from doing it. So people were even traveling for longer distances that they usually have taken flights to, right? As opposed to normally taking a flight. So they were driving these long distances, just showing that the fact that they were driving more was just to avoid flying. Now, those statistics that we've read before did not matter to them then. They did, right? As a matter of fact, we even have more statistics that will have made them just stick to planes. But the idea of four planes crashing in a very short amount of time, that story around that was so strong that people completely forgot about the statistics and decided, you know what? Nope. You cannot convince me that planes are safe. Nope, I'm sticking with my Suburban, right? Going to get myself that station wagon, me and my family. I'll house them in those seats, pile my luggage, and we're driving. Even if we're driving 13 hours, so be it. But you're not convincing me that those statistics are true. And those statistics were true. And guess what? By the end of 2002, another research was done, which was quite shocking. That the number of Americans who lost their lives on the road by avoiding that risk of flying was actually higher than the total number of passengers killed in those four fatal flights. And mind you, we lost thousands, by the way, in that incident. But these numbers here that that more Americans die in car accidents every 13 days. This is interesting. But if we were to combine the deaths in the last 27 years from planes, they would match every 13 days in cars. These statistics were there then, but no one was even close to believing in this. What am I trying to show here, guys? That statistics are good, yeah, but they are never going to ignite that action or cause that shift in mentality or bring that change that maybe you're trying to bring about. And stories are far more important, and they more often or most often tend to trump over the statistics. Let's look at something else here. If I'm to tell you guys that enough Christmas lights are sold every year to cover 996,000 miles, just a couple of, right? You're reading this and you're like, cool, that's nice. I don't think you'll remember this tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or next week or the next time we maybe have such a session. But if I'm to tell you, imagine the size of the earth, right? Imagine it being wrapped 40 times with Christmas lights. You're like, wow, 40 times around the earth? Yes. And then I tell you, that is the equivalent of the Christmas lights that people buy in a year. So this start is exactly this story, but the impact that this story will have on you is very different from what that start was, right? Again, another very interesting demonstration of stats are good, but they're not the full story. If you build a story around that stat, your message becomes even more clear, even more memorable. And then the chances of it bringing about some action increase tenfold, 30-fold, 50-fold. I don't have the exact number, but they surely increase. I don't know about you guys, but is anyone forgetting that people are buying Christmas lights that can, in a year, that can go around the earth 40 times? Eh, that's just crazy. Very interesting. But these miles here, I will definitely forget these miles to me. But I'm definitely not forgetting this story, right? So such is those fine lines, you know, just what we are trying to do here is just build towards the importance of a story, right? So at this point, we all know about statistics. We've dealt with them. We're probably data people somewhere, or we deal with data on a day-to-day somewhere. So statistics are not new, but we're just trying to show that they are not everything. Similar is context, right? Having 10 graphs does not mean that this is a good story to tell, right? There's always, context is vastly important over the content you have. Case in point, so let me say I'm down 20 kgs this month. So uh, what's going through your mind? Anyone, what's the first thing that came to your mind when you read this out loud, that I'm down 20 kgs this month? What are you thinking? We can even maybe type in the chat and John maybe can read some of those ones out. I'm down 20 kgs this month. What's going through your head?
It's an achievement.
It's an achievement. Interesting. What are people saying, John? I'm hearing lots of tech.
Most of them have said that it's related to weight loss and reduced weight by 20.
So is it a positive or negative statement to you? I might be on I might be on some treatment on on a deathbed somewhere, and this treatment is supposed to, they're supposed to track my weight, and if I'm to lose this sort of kilograms a month, well, I'm almost being written off. I'm almost being told I'm dying, right? Now, is that a positive sentiment, right? So I might be sharing this news with one of the relatives who's going to visit me, and I'm lying there and I'm telling them the treatment is not working. As a matter of fact, I'm down 20 kgs this month. Huh. Suddenly it's not about weight loss and hey, nice. That keto diet. Oh, that's it. You want a smoothie diet? Fantastic. You know, it's not celebratory now. It's now consumed, right? Another one. Bakery sold 10 times more cupcakes than bread this week. Aha. What are we thinking, guys? What's coming to our mind? The second statement that a bakery sold 10 times more cupcakes than loaves of milk in a particular week.
Depending on the price of the cupcakes or bread, it might
Ah,
mean an increase in revenue or a decrease.
great. So we can even congratulate this bakery and tell them probably they're doing quite some good work with the cupcakes. So, right? Probably that's another sentiment. Well, guess what? Also, maybe the ovens that were baking the bread, or the trays. If some of you are familiar with baking, we have these trays whereby we pour the dough, right? So we pour the dough in these trays and then we throw them in the oven. Probably we got robbed, and whoever robbed us just robbed all the you know all the trays that could help make us bread, and now we are stuck to making cupcakes. Hence, people buying more cupcakes. Probably it's now the only item in our menu, and out of frustration, people are just walking in and just buying and saying, "Okay, if you guys don't have, okay, just give me a cupcake because I'm hungry and I have my tea here. I'll go have this, but I'm disappointed." So, context. And the last one here, a fitness instructor has a 90% client dropout rate within the first minute. Going through our mind. What's going through our mind? Maybe even with regards to the fitness instructor. What can we say about the fitness instructor? Is he doing a good job? Is he doing a bad job? I mean, it seems like he's running out of business. If this is a dropout rate, then if some people had invested in this guy, then well, they're in the mud, right? What are people saying, John? I'm very curious to see what people are saying.
Okay, so Chacha says customer dissatisfaction, Gilbert says poor
Ah,
services, and Carol says maybe the instructor isn't experienced enough. Mugendi has
mhm.
another insight that there were high prices on the first month. And
Probably
then,
they were working on discounts.
yeah, and then there
What?
is guest saying he might be strict.
Okay, just it seems we don't have very good gym experiences. But guess what, guys? Probably this fitness instructor has found a niche, and the niche that this guy has found is, or this lady is, you see, when sometimes it's that during pregnancy, we are past due, right? We were due, maybe the lady was due this month, and then this month, this week is gone, the other week is gone, and now it's concerning. Maybe this fitness instructor here or trainer has found a way of using exercise to relieve that. And the clients dropping out here mean that actually working. And those mothers who are coming, those expectant mothers who are coming for the program, are actually giving birth. So this is supposed to be very, this is a cause for celebration. So uh, too harsh, discounted prices. No, he's actually killing it. He's doing whatever he does the best way, right? And the success is just it's overwhelming. So context is very important, right? This is content. These are statistics that we put out there, but without the right context or without telling guys what the context behind this or without building a story on top of this, we can very easily be misinterpreted. That's the other point that I wanted to bring up, right? That poor storytelling or lack of storytelling leaves a lot of room for ambiguity, for misinterpretation, for lack of clarity in the message that you're trying to put across. And this is something that we'll try to mitigate over. So we've moved over trying to mitigate the need of putting stats out there and feeling like we've done so much. We might have worked very hard to get those statistics. We will not discredit, but it goes beyond that. We've seen that stories have tended to even bring more or more effect on people's behavior as opposed to statistics. And in that instance in particular, the statistics were actually overwhelming. And now we've come and seen that, hey, there's something else, there's context. So there is need for us to surround that statistic of ours with a short story, just making sure that our message or our point is clear. So very interesting thing, very interesting thing. But yeah, let's move on. Let's see where these goes to. So ideally, when we are talking about data storytelling, there is this sort of overall approach, and it usually goes something like having a bigger picture. So this is like, think of this as a step one, whereby we are now defining our why. And what we are saying is, one, we know we are presenting these findings of ours to some investors. So we've ticked the box of audience. We know our audience. Great. We know the data that we've searched for data online, we've searched for this data all over the place, and we found the data. So we've looked through our data and we know the data at our disposal. And what this helps us with is we cannot strive to tell something that our data does not contain. So this acts as our guiding light. We know our limits, we know how far we can go in terms of with regards to the data that we have. We know our audience, so we know some the limitations that come about with our audience. This is a presentation to youth, maybe young people who are vibrant. We can craft our presentation in that sort of way. If we are talking to management, we have no business maybe trying to introduce anecdotes, right, and trying to introduce these, whatever it is that we are doing here, right. We'd have been told to guys, just leave, go prepare better and come back later, something like that, right? So we already know what our focus is. And from there, with that knowledge, we now move to the next stage of probably even creating the story comes, don't think of this as from, especially from two onwards, this can always shift, and not even shift, but they are very iterative. What do I mean? That from there we now ask ourselves, what are the best visualizations to put across that are going to put our message out there as clear as possible, right? So we want to match the right visualizations for the right task. We want the right visualizations to deliver the correct message. So we're not trying to plot 30 groups in pie chart because we are cluttering. We cannot be able to see them. And from there, now that we have visualizations prepared, we now create a cohesive story using those visualizations as our evidence. And here we are talking about not only the what, but the why. We are crafting a story that has a flow. It starts from point A, with maybe bringing about the problem, showing the evidence of the problem, introducing a solution or the opportunity, and giving a recommendation. That is how we are crafting cohesive story, and our visualizations are fitting into that story. And they're not just there for the sake of being there. And then now we are tailoring this to our audience. Remember, most of the times, especially if you're working with, let's say you're working with Power BI, you're creating these visualizations on Power BI, but you have to export them somewhere to maybe a PPT, a presentation, in form of because these are the most common ways in which you're sharing your data, right? If you're working within Python, guys, I don't believe you're sending someone a notebook Python unless you're sending your colleague or your team member who will be interested in how you achieved some of those visualizations. But you're not really, the end user is not going to receive these sort of, think of them as whatever is in our garage. We're not trying to show that. We're trying to come up with something clean, something neat, something direct, right? So we are tailoring our visualizations, putting them in a PPT and crafting them to be able, and tailoring them rather to that audience of ours. And from there, we are igniting, or we are encouraging our audience to take action based on the information that we presented, right? So this is usually sort of the flow of a well data storytelling, a well story that has been structured properly, right? So a well constructed story. And we'll carry this into the example that we'll have at the end. We'll have few examples, and we'll see how we incorporate all these things within that, right? So let's see. Now, same way to, I've reiterated over and over again about how there is a lot on matters data storytelling. And I'm sure all of you will agree with me when I'm saying that communication is also a part of data storytelling, right? You having very nice slides and then going and presenting in front of people with your head down, well, that doesn't, it only gets your message so far. You filter out your audience by those who are really interested, because you lose so many along the way, depending on your posture, depending on your articulation of words, so on and so forth, right? Psychological aspects of it as well, those ones are there, right? And well, that's not ours. That would be part of what we'll talk about today. We'll also pick a struggle, the same way you pick um, a story to tell. We'll pick a struggle, and our struggle for tonight will be just visualizations. Let's focus on visualizations and find out how to best utilize them in the data storytelling pipeline. Great. So a few tips, or once you've gotten your data, you've done your insights, you've generated some charts. before you export these charts to a PPT somewhere, just a few things that I'd want you to make sure that your visualization stick, or some questions that you just ask yourself about the visualization. So one, what can I eliminate from this visualization that still remain or retain the key information that I want to put out? So what can I eliminate and still retain the core information? And what am I doing in this instance, in this step one? I am cutting the clutter. And why am I cutting the clutter? Because clutter introduces something we call visual fatigue. Now, not only do I have a chart in front of me, I have to decipher or decode this chart. No one wants to feel like that when looking at a visualization. We all want to look at a visualization and directly tell whatever message that is being that is being put across. So cutting the clutter does wonders, and we'll see how this works, right? Second thing, if I have more than one visualizations, probably I'm putting up a dashboard. Are my visualizations consistent? Also, if I have titles for all this, are my titles the same font? Are they the same color? If I'm using color, there has to be purpose behind it, right? So am I consistent in my labels? If I have legends, am I consistent in my legends? Am I consistent in my X titles, my Y title? Am I consistent in my labeling? Question two, we ask ourselves. So one, we've cut the clutter. Now we look at consistency in our visualization. Next, what message am I putting across? So if you went through phase one very well, probably you realize you have a very big task and you're breaking it down to a few things. Maybe if you're doing some sort of churn analysis, guys, you first have to look into customers. So if you're maybe showing a visualization about the various customer segments in your customer base, ask yourself, focusing is this visualization focusing the attention on this message that I'm trying to put across? So is my visualization helping me towards putting my message out there easier, or is it even hindering that? And next, do my visualizations have a flow? If at all I'm working with many, and I'm always starting with a problem, going to evidence of that problem, going to the solution or the opportunity at hand, and then the recommendation. Do my visualizations follow that flow? Step four. And once you're in a position to tick all these boxes, you're halfway there. You're not even halfway there. You're three-quarter there, because maybe you can find someone in your team who's better at the presentation pattern. You can, but I very much encourage us to keep working and try to tick all these boxes in the storytelling. Try and understand the psychological aspects of it. Try and hack these communication aspects of it. First and foremost, let's first get these visualizations right. How so? Work on this one scenario here. So this is a sample of data we'll be working with, just a few rows, but I'll tell you more about this data. What we'll be looking at from this data is analyzing the CO2 emissions of various food categories. Some of us have actually come across this data and are on the call, so they might be knowing where I'm headed. Let's take a look at this. Our data typically has countries, so it has so many countries, the food categories for those countries, the consumptions for those countries, and the CO2 emissions from those countries, and specifically from those food categories. So, for instance, I know that pork in Argentina has a consumption of 10.51 and a CO2 emission of 37.2. Now, this is repetitive for all the countries, for quite a lot of countries along the world. So, this is our task. Now, if we are told to analyze the emissions of various food categories, so what are we using? We're using this CO2 emission and the country. That's where our emphasis is, sorry, right? This CO2 emission here, guys, and the country and the category, sorry. So I just want to analyze the CO2 emissions for the various food categories, meaning I will combine the pork for all the countries, the poultry for all the countries, it's everything. So, boom. The first thing you think about is how will you present this information? Uh, Guys, suggestion, how will you present this information, or what visualization are you guys already thinking about that will help us show these this insight, right? What choice of visualization are we using to show us the CO2 emissions of these food categories? Not a wrong answer. Again, we have room for creativity in this. So, what are you using? Just on a personal level, what are you using to show this? John, what are people saying?
People are writing a bar chart, a bar graph. One, Chris is saying a line graph.
A line graph. Interesting. We will address that. But yeah, I'm sure most of the suggestions are around a budget, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sure. So budget it is. So this is a budget that I've first created, right? So I have my food categories along the x-axis, and I have the CO2 emission along the y-axis, and I have a nice title. So remember our building blocks, guys? This. So let's start with step one. Oh, what are your sentiments on this? How can we improve this graph? How can we improve this visualization? Just type along the chat. What avenue is presenting itself as a very as an avenue we can improve on, or we can work on, or we can better? What are some of those changes you'd make?
John is saying descending order.
Descending order. So he wants us to show the top to the highest to the lowest. Interesting. Anyone else? What else are they saying? I feel like I'll just leave and just read them out loud.
Come again.
Yeah, I feel like I'll just come here and just look at these chats myself. Just a minute. Let me see.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Probably it will be a bit quicker. So interesting. So we have declutter some food types since they're overlapping. X-axis, so there's someone suggesting we chill, we lengthen. Someone has noticed that some of our X labels are overlapping, right? Changing it to horizontal bar graph. Interesting. Reducing the scale. Let's do this. So let's see. Let the bars fit within boxes rather than along a line. So let's go back to this and see how we can improve this. So first things first. What have I done? A lot of visual clutter. I don't see the purpose that all these lines serve. They might the horizontal ones might be important in in trying to help me read these values of those bars that are a bit far. But what purpose are these grid lines have? What purpose do they have? Yeah. So first thing, I get rid of that. The labels here, I fix that. I have them. I have a horizontal bar plot, right? And with doing that, I've already sorted it, as someone had suggested. So we're moving from the highest to the lowest. Now, you might decide again, you're always trying to focus your message on something, but you can leave it as it is. It's good. I have a label here. Someone knows these are the CO2 emissions, blah, blah, blah. These are the food categories, the title. Looking good. But if I look within my data a bit more, there's some things I'm noticing about these food categories. I don't know if anyone has an idea of what we are noticing. We have beef, milk, lamb, rice, fish, peanuts, wheat products, pork, poultry, eggs, soybeans. Anything come to mind? Anything come to mind, guys, about those food products? How can we improve that plot? A hint, guys. Let's take a look at this, right? We have beef, that's animal product, milk, that's an animal product, lamb and goat, that's an animal product, rice, the plant-based, animal, plant, plant, animal. We have some sort of repeating pattern. And I'm thinking to myself, probably I could even give a better distinction or a better message from this, right? Why do I need to stop here? What I've done next is I've used colors very interestingly. What to distinguish between animal-based food categories and plant-based food categories. Now, this is the same data, same type of graph, but this is offering more value as compared to what we had before. Now, someone just looking at this notices first, yes, I have this, but seems like I have two values, right? I have two groups. Sorry, I have a group in red and a group in green, and probably the one in red meets the one in green plant based. That's the case. So how do we find this? Are we improving it, guys? Veg and animal, great. So Pauline had already suggested. So are we seeing progress with our plot, guys? A thumbs up if we are. Are we seeing how we've incorporated a new insight into a very basic graph with the same data that we had? We haven't gone anywhere and said we are limited to the data we have. Are we seeing how that's coming afloat? But that's not all. What else can we do? Let's take a look at this very quickly. I've just introduced another horizontal line here. I hope this is horizontal and not vertical. And what I'm now, this is focusing my message. This is the focusing my message bit. And I'm choosing to focus on the highest plant-based food category being, being that level as opposed to the ones on top of it. Now, just having this line here already gives you an idea of the contribution of the top three as opposed to the highest in the plant-based food category. Guys, are we seeing that sort of incorporation? Are we seeing now we've moved from the vegetarian? Oh wow, okay. I don't know if I'll take that personally, Carol, but you're right. As you know, as a data person, you need to be very, very uh, intuitive, and intuitive is not the best way. You need to be curious. You need to think not just long and hard, but also just with a bit of trickery and things. How can I maximize this plot that I have to give out the most insight without cluttering it? Now, introducing colors has not even, instead of cluttering our visualization, we've managed to add value and even make it better, because now we've moved from one boredom color. And when you have monotone as such, guys, when you have such a monotone, you know what comes to your mind? You now want to find the values of all these. Now it becomes, now, okay, now this is not telling me this. Probably it's giving me the rank, but what is this matching up with? But if I incorporate the color, I've shifted you from these actual numbers, and I've introduced another idea of the difference between these two groups, right? You're noticing how I've shifted your focus from one to now. Probably we even forgot about the numbers. If I'm to hide this, probably if I had gotten rid of this in this slide, it wouldn't even be much of a concern because my message is home. I just want you to look at the plant, the highest plant, and compare it to the animal-based category. So that's a very just an improvement on one. We can provide an index of the colors. Thank you very much, Chacha, for that. We don't have a legend. We can give a legend for that because, and that is something I left out. So that's even something you guys. That's good. I noticed that, but I just decided to find the pipeline. We can add a legend, an index to the colors, tell people more about it, and it's very light. We've been working. That is one visualization. Let's see how we can approach a whole sort of project that has multiple visualization. Let's see how we approach such a problem. I hope you guys are following. A thumbs up if we're together, guys. Thumbs up if we've begun to see the tips maybe that we were hoping for, and we've stopped with the storytelling a bit, right? Not too much stories, more about the insight, more about some tips that we can take home. Great. Let's go back to that. Let's see something else. Let's see how we take it up a notch. Great. So scenario 2 is, so we will be forming a sales, an analysis of sales data, right? So previous sales. And what we'll be doing is taking a look at the sales data and looking into the trends. Now, this reminds me of someone who suggested a line chart before. Yeah, let's hold that somewhere. We'll go back to it, right? So we have sales data that will look into the trend over time, but then we also have customers. So we have different customers. It seems we have several groups in our customer bases, and they are contributing different to sales. So we'll also look into that. And from that, we'll have all our findings in one slide. And from that, we'll give a recommendation based on those findings. How do we go about it? So this is if what's going through your mind, guys, when you look at this, right? What does it show us? Clearly, we can see it shows us the trend. The colors are sort of informing us of the different customer groups. I've looked at this data a bit longer, so maybe I might point that out for you guys, but I don't know how long it will have taken for you guys to notice that. I don't know, right? You can see some labels, all good, and you can see we have some dates here, and these are the sales, and then we have the analysis down here. So we are saying we have a total unit decline, blah blah blah, and 48 month from August to July, while cash grew, so on and so forth. So what do we make of this presentation? How would you describe this presentation in one word? This is this slide. Remember, we were constrained. We were told share your findings in one slide, right? Management doesn't want to keep scrolling through pages and pages just to get some insight. They are telling you, be creative, find a way. You see, we said it's an art. Bring your creativity into uh, present. Tell us. So, what is going through your mind? Describe this in one word, is or maybe even more than one word. Cluttered. It's busy. A lot. Something else could be even a statement. Probably. Let me pose a question. Have we, but are we not trying to put our message out there, guys? I feel like you guys are being a bit harsh on my visualization, because I realize, guys, you can see the trend, you can see the various customer segments, guys. You can see the labels. I've even given you numbers to support the sizes of those bars. Come on, guys. I've given you even colors. I mean, ah, ah, she's here. I see you. Thank you very much. It's insightful. That's the first positive statement I've gotten. That's good. But I feel like we can improve it. What's the bigger picture? What's the message, right? Pauline doesn't feel as if we are putting the message across. She has a point. Let's take a look at that. Great. So back to our guiding blocks. First step, clutter. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So many numbers. If I took this page off and told you to tell me one number that you've read there, uh, I don't know if anyone can anyone tell us one sales number they've read from that graph? Just one sales number, guys. I mean, I left that on for quite some time. And, we are smart people, so absorbing information is not an issue. But we can all agree these are too many numbers. Just one bar chart has 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, there's just a lot going on. You guys were right about that. In an attempt to answer the question the best way we want to, we fall victim to such things as overcrowding. And you send this out as a report, and guess what comes back as a response? We might need more data to get what you're trying to tell us. After incorporating all this data, they're still asking for more data. That is where frustration comes along, and it's no longer a walk in the park. Now we are building a hostile work environment. So what can we do? We can cut down some clutter. Uh, Take a look at the next slide. So I move from this to this. Yeah, let's even come to this before and after, right? So I can get rid of those grid lines. I don't know why I have grid lines and I have data labels. What are these grid lines trying to tell me? I don't know. I also don't understand why I have an axis and I have labels all through. I might as well sacrifice one because this is the same information, it's just redundant. Now, you might argue these labels are important, but what's all these? I mean, too many numbers. Right? Sometimes you just pick a struggle and stick to it. What have I done here? Uh, well, these dates. I don't know if you guys found reading these dates are working. I struggled a bit, and you imagine you're struggling to read your own presentation, to read your own visualization. I mean, you're off to a rocky start. So it's broken down as such to 2019, 2020, and the month within those 2 years. Much better, much readable. I've gotten rid of whatever, having these legend down here. I don't know what purpose it was serving, and I've just had them next to my background. So I know the gray here corresponds to my 48-month lease. So there is a customer group that is having 48-month leases, another one that's having 12-month leases, and another one that's coming who are using cash for transaction. So how do we feel about this, guys? How do we feel about this? Do we feel as if we've lost any information? Right? We've probably lost these individual numbers. But what was our bigger picture? What did we want to learn? Remember? It was trends. Trends, guys, I don't think we need to have these numbers here to see the trend. Visualizing trend is just about the shape over time. So I don't know how we feel about these improvements. So sentiment on this before we move on, guys. How do we feel about that? Have we made some some vast improvements on that? Have we made strides towards decluttering our visualization and putting our message out there? Do we feel as if we are on a good track? Are we there? Or probably do you feel as if we are on the way? Where are we? It looks great. Can we do more of that such clearer, a bit better? Okay. Well, let's see whether we can. What about the COVID in? So we've surely lost some information. Very nice catch, Mugan. We've lost some COVID impact, and we might have to find a way of incorporating it. But also, we have to find a balance between, is that the information we want to put across? Is it part of the information? So interesting. We'll see. Let's keep working on it. Keep working on it. Great. Yet I'm just tempting to get rid of the color. I'm realizing probably these colors are just becoming a bit too much. What if I get rid of the colors and maybe just have the overall trend as a line chart in yellow? What do you guys feel about this? What do you guys feel about this? Sentiments on getting rid of the color, guys? Maybe I just escape and come to the comments. What do you guys feel about this? Just overall sentiment without even thinking about it too much. Do we feel as if coming from this to this, is it an improvement, or have we taken a step back? Have we lost crucial information? Can't differentiate the trends for it. Very good point. So in an attempt to, it looks worse. Oh, Chacha is brutal, but it's okay. We take that, and we have so we have indeed lost something very important, which is what? Let's take a look. Part of the questions of our data were, let us look into the customer purchasing behavior. Now, if this was an insight enough to have it as a point in our requirements, we cannot afford to lose it as such, right? And even having labels here does not really do much. It doesn't really do much. So we might find ourselves back to that. We might find ourselves back to that. So we are trying to focus attention with color, but no. But let me give you guys maybe something interesting. What if we had a focus on the 48-month group category alone? Right? You see how this is just forget our initial requirements. Now this is an example of how to focus attention with color. What do I mean? Similarly to how we had the green and red before, what we have here is just a yellow highlighting this particular segment of customers, and a very nice explanation here saying in matching color that the 48-month lease units are down 36% between August 2019 Notice even you have a value for August 2019, guys, and July 2020, and a value for it. You see how you can utilize color to focus on one particular group? I hope you guys can appreciate this, right? This is one way that color works, one way that color doesn't, because here we are not emphasizing on anything. If you can't really emphasize on the total because it's the trend and we can still see it. So you've lost crucial information in terms of the groups. But this, you've just chosen one group, but this was not our question. So we will not proceed with this. Let's not fret. This is just sort of a proof of concept or just showing how this can be done. So next, are we using the best visualization really, guys? Because we are trying to visualize trends, trends, trends. All right, guys. Let's ask ourselves a few questions. How do we visualize trend normally? Think of data. Oh, we have 15 minutes. All right, cool. Try to rush that. When showing trend, think of stock prices. What visualizations are used to depict stock prices? Line charts, line graphs. Why on earth are we using, stacked bar charts, guys? Why? We felt the need to incorporate them because they would show us the distinction, but on the core or on the basis, uh, bar charts don't show trend. They might, but are they the best at it? We are getting the message. We are not saying we're not getting the message, but well, we can do better. So this, I can break this down to something like this. These are line charts just showing the same information, the trend over a particular time, but now I have one line for 12 months, the other for 48, the other for cash. Now, what else can I have? I can have something called a slope graph. Now, instead of having all these knickknacks, whatever, I might just be interested with changes from for this year to that start period the other year. I don't want to know what happened in October, in November, in December. I don't want all this. That is why I introduced a slope graph, which just gives me the numbers for that one particular time, which is August, and the numbers for July. Whatever happened in between here, it doesn't. I don't need to have this visual clutter, but I have a number telling me the difference between this and this. I can also have this very interesting one, right? So I get rid of the exact units and I show them as percentages, and I just show comparison between July and August, whereby the size corresponds to the contribution of those customer types to our sales. So why am I sticking to this when I can play around with all this? Well, I don't know what you guys feel. Do you guys feel as if we need to switch from stacked bar charts? Do we switch, guys? Do we switch or do we remain? Thumbs up if we switch, thumbs down if we retain. What do we do? What do we do? I hope we have a thumbs down. Let me just confirm. Oh, we don't have a thumbs down. Great. So what? Thumbs up if we retain, if we change the peace sign, if we retain what we have. What do you guys think? Who wants us to retain? Thumbs up, the peace sign if you want us to just keep what we have, stick with the bar. Okay, so all of us are saying we can give it we can change, right? Let's see how we can address that. And I'll just probably just wrap it up from here. So I can utilize both those two. What have I done here? I've shown a general trend over time. This will give you a breakdown of those month-to-month variations, but also I've incorporated something here, is slope graph here, that just shows us exactly the change from X to Y with a percentage and with a label for that corresponding thing. And I can just tell that this is total sales over time, and these are the sales by purchase type. I've broken down that bar chart of ours into two visualizations that are putting my message very clear. Remember the requirements, guys? A sales conduct, and what do we need to show? Purchasing trends, purchasing trends and customer purchasing behavior. Purchasing trend over time, customer purchasing behavior. just finding a better way of showing it. Now, it will be better if you move from this and you get the question, what was the month on month change? But that was not the question. We did not see month on month as a requirement. So we can be a bit creative. And from here, we can end up with something like this. Now, a lot of tips are coming through here. What? That I'm using titles that are saying they, they are informative. I'm not just saying an sales analysis of blah 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 or analysis into customer purchase behavior. I don't want my title to be even ambiguous. I want to put my message out there very fast. And I'm saying straight off the bat, consumer behavior has shifted. So already, even before you take a look at anything here, you already know that consumer behavior is not the same. Now I'm introducing annotations and text to accompany my visualizations to get this message home, to focus my message and make it as clear as possible. And I'm saying total units sold are down 22.7% year on year, down 23% since the impact of COVID-19 lockdowns. This was information that we had lost. Someone pointed it out. We have incorporated it back in form of an annotation. And purchase type composition has evolved, meaning 12-month list, the sales are going down. 48-month list, they are going down. But for those using cash, they've gone up 10% from August last year. So this is how we incorporate titles that have a direct message, annotations, message, in breaking down, reducing the cluster, and we've moved now from this to something like this. Same information, same data. But what do you think will bring about change? What do you want to see even before you present? What would you rather you meet as a slide that someone is sharing with you? Just look at this transition. These clutters from trying to have everything on one graph to separating, to isolating, annotating, to utilizing customer behavior. This is what we are able to do just by asking those small questions. Clutter. Am I focusing my message somewhere? Am I using the correct visualizations? Am I using text and annotations to support my data? So this, guys, is the end of our scenario two. And I don't know what you guys think. Do you think we can improve on this? Or do you feel as if we are there? What do you guys feel? We can maybe improve on that. Who feels like we can improve on that? The aftermath is much better. Thanks for that. Clearly. So this is what we were trying to do now. I've borrowed this insight from somewhere and I found it very insightful, and that's why I included it here today, because I feel it shows us a couple of these factors all together. So Barack says we are there. Yeah, I believe we are there. We've moved from something close to horrific, right? It's good. It has insight. It took time to come up with that stacked bar plot. Do not discredit the work, right? This was not easy to come up with. Even these annotations were not easy. To have these labels inside here, not easy, but we can always improve on it. Why? The purpose is to make sure that our message gets out there and is absorbed in the shortest amount of time. So this will probably take 2 minutes, and you already know that fast customer, even if you got into the meeting, found us addressing this issue, popped your head in and left, you've left knowing that customer behavior is not the same. If you maybe stayed in 5 more seconds, you were able to see that we had two slopes, but we had one thing that was going up. So there's a category or a consumer segment that's improving. Now, this is how I can keep at it for so long, but that's the whole point. So tips and tricks: get rid of the clutter, reduce that visual stress, guys. Get rid of the clutter, but do not lose information. If at all you lose information, find a way of incorporating that information back. Guys, consistency is key. Look at, apologies for that. Just pressed escape. Look at the labeling. The yellows corresponding, the blacks are corresponding, right? So I have yellows. Cash purchases have increased in 10% in the last 12 months, corresponds to my graph here. Impact of COVID lockdowns in yellow, COVID-19 impact in yellow. I'm using those colors very constructively, right? I'm being consistent in my labeling. I'm focusing my attention on places where I want you to focus on, which is on the increase in this cash group and the impact since COVID-19. You can see that very clearly. And I'm incorporating numbers that will give you just an idea. You see how even my labels, guys, a label for August, a label for COVID-19, a label for June. You don't need to know what happened in September here. It's good. You can drill down always, but don't be caught in that trap of trying too much and then achieving so little. Lastly, purpose your annotations and titles, and this will help you, of course, the clarity of your messaging. So that's it, guys. I don't believe there is anything to add. Uh, yeah, we still have 5 minutes. At least we can have maybe a few questions, but that is how we fix one aspect of data storytelling, and that is utilizing our visualizations to our strengths, right? Not shying away from asking ourselves, can we improve on this? And also not being under pressure to incorporate everything in one slide and paying the price for them. So those few tips will go a long way to helping us improve our visualizations as we work on these other aspects of maybe communication, etc. Just to have a wholesome experience or a wholesome improved experience in our data storytelling. So that's been my time, guys. It's been a pleasure having you. So, Joan, maybe you can take it off from here. I don't know what else you had in the program, but thanks for your time, guys. I hope you've all learned a thing or two.
Thank you, Nduti. I think that was a really interactive session. We can give him a round of applause. If you have any questions, we can take a few more questions. Nduti, please receive your flowers. You've really done a great job.
Much appreciated, guys. Much appreciated.
Okay, there's someone who is unmuted. Let me just mute them.
Yeah,
Okay,
I believe it's Mary or Nikam.
I think I've muted her. Okay, I guess we are done with the session. I will kindly request all of you guys to join our community, Zindua in Tech. We post anything to do with tech, and we post such webinars and tech events that we hold at Zindua School, and not only in Zindua School, in the tech space. The recording link over there, so make sure you join the community. I'll just give us 1 minute. We can join the community. All right, I can see some of you are joining. Thank you, guys. If you want to have such webinars, you can suggest what kind of webinars we can hold, not only in the data space, in the software engineering space, in the product management, cloud. You can suggest them to me and we will organize such webinars for you guys. So thank you for joining the session and I wish you all a good night. Cheers, guys.
So have a good night, guys.
Yes, cheers, guys.